We are probably live. Hello again to one of my
Hi.
favorite people, my favorite authors, my favorite interviewees on the planet, Bea Birdsong.
Hi, Mel. How are you? I'm so excited to be here with you for a third time.
Well, it's a very, very somber day here in Israel. We have hostages coming back in coffins, the Bibas family. Um, it's a tragic day, but one of the things we're going to talk about is things that are so difficult in the world and how do we, as authors and people, overcome these hardships and tragedies and try and shed some goodness and some positivity in this difficult world. I was going to throw in an F word, but
But we're
but
a picture book interview, so we won't do that.
we should throw in a P word. B. So I hasten to add that your real name is Bea Birdsong. You didn't invent it.
I couldn't hear you, Mel. What'd you say?
I said that your real name is Bea Birdsong.
It is a pen name.
It's a pen name, and your real
Yeah.
name is
My real name is Colleen.
Colleen. What?
Colleen Garfunkel.
You see? Did I know that?
I think so.
I'm not. I'm not sure. I have to go for both interviews now and check. So who calls you Colleen and who calls you B?
My family calls me Colleen, and everyone in the book world calls me B. Well, really, my agent and some of my editors call me Colleen. Some call me B. But always with book things, I keep it simple and it's just B.
I'm almost sure that we never had this conversation, but it's possible I'm becoming senile. So we're going to have it again in a few minutes. Um, because I was sure your name was B. Birdsong. On the contrary, I was just going to say, you were born to be a children's author. Anybody named B. Birdsong has to be a children's author. And here again, you see, you spoiled my story. And this is part of our interactions. You keep spoiling my stories.
Oh dear, I'm
And
sorry.
no, it's fine. And I have more. And we're here to talk about a story that you spoiled for me, which is out just 2 days ago, a marvelous book called The Goat is the Goat. And be a few words about this enchanting book. I've read it, it's gorgeous.
Thank you so much, Mel. It's Goat is the Goat, and it's written by me and it's illustrated by Kelly Murphy. And she did an amazing job with the illustrations. And it's about a little goat who overhears some chickens talking about they're talking about a prized bull on a poster and saying he's the goat, the greatest of all time. But the goat thinks, well, I'm the goat. I must be the greatest of all time. And so he sets out to discover what makes him the greatest.
Can you read to us from this
Yes,
book, please?
sure.
It's so lovely.
Make sure you can see. And this is with Nancy Paulsen Books.
It is.
Okay. He's the goat, greatest of all time. Me? I'm the greatest of all time? Wow. If I'm the greatest, maybe I'll get a trophy. Maybe there will be a parade. Maybe I'll be showered with confetti. Yummy. But I wonder, what makes me the greatest? Maybe I'm fast, the fastest of all time. No one can catch me. Whoa, I guess I'm not the fastest.
Yeah, I think we'll stop here because
Okay.
I don't want to get in trouble, uh, especially not with Nancy Paulson with
Yes.
her lovely imprint. So tell us about how this came to be, and then we'll talk about how B came to be.
So goat is the goat. I remember that how I thought of that. I don't always with books, but that one I remember. And it was during lockdown in 2020, which tells you how long it takes sometimes for books to come out. And we were all home. My son was finishing college online because we were all on lockdown, and my husband was working from home. And of course, I worked from home. And so we were all here. And it was hard for me to get quiet in the house. It's hard with so many people being here all the time. And so I was really having a hard time working. And of course, added to the worry of the pandemic and everything else. And one day I was sitting with my dog on my lap, and my husband was listening to a sports program, and one of the commentators said about an athlete, "He's the GOAT." And I said to my dog, "That guy's not the GOAT, you're the GOAT." And then I thought, oh, a dog is the GOAT. That would be funny. And then I thought, a goat is a goat. That's funny too. And I had the whole story in my head after that.
Okay, and did you sell it in 2020?
Yes. Yes,
So
I
so
sent
so what was it? So you just wrote it and sold it? You rolled it
yeah.
right out?
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't, which is, I could tell you another story, but it doesn't always come to me right away, but sometimes it does. And with that one, it came to me right away, and I sent it to my agent, I think the same day. And we did make, I remember because there was another character that we took out that she suggested we take out. There was a duck character who was sort of egging the goat on, and she said, "I don't think you need the duck." And so I revised to take the duck out on Melissa's suggestion. And
Hmm.
then she sent it out. And, I think we had an offer from Nancy pretty quickly. And this is my first book with Nancy Paulsen, but I have two more coming with her now.
Fantastic. We'll talk about that. And your author is the wonderful Melissa Edwards, who's been on the show. Oh, I was so excited to see you. I forgot who I am. I should introduce myself at some stage in this program. I'm Mel Rosenberg, and I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. Oh, I've done that.
Yes.
And I'm here with the wonderful Bea Birdsong, who just divulged that she has another name. We're going to get to that in a minute. But Melissa Edwards, this wonderful agent whom I've interviewed, she vouched for the fact that she picked you up from the
Yes.
slush pile,
Yes.
even though she didn't represent picture book authors,
Right.
and she fell in love with I Will Be Fierce, right?
I Will Be Fierce, which was my debut book. Yes.
Which I think is one of the best children's books I've ever read.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet, Mel. Thank you.
It's from the heart. It's an amazing book. And you also told in a previous interview that your buddies, your critique buddies, threatened you that if you didn't send it out to agents, they would.
They did. They did. I see. I don't have a whole lot of confidence, and I had less then. I'm gaining some confidence, but I had less certainly then, and I didn't have enough confidence to send it out. And they were like, "You have to send it out." So I did. I listened.
So did Nancy buy this book on a preamp? Did she just say I'm taking it? What?
Yes, I now see. It's been 5 years, so
Okay.
but
Okay.
I think she offered, and we accepted, and on this one, yeah.
Wonderful. But it took 5 years for it to come out. This is,
Yes, I think
goats are very lazy creatures, but 5 years. But it can take 5 years.
it was originally scheduled for maybe 22 or 23, and then it just, it kept getting pushed back, and it just happens that way sometimes. I have other books that also have taken that long. I Will Be Fierce took 18 months. That was like the quickest that I've ever heard of, even with a picture book. And they got that one right out. But a lot of mine have taken a longer time to get out. The one that I have in the fall, it was supposed to come out last year, and it got pushed back a year. So it happens.
E- Exactly. So the let's go back now very briefly,
Mhm.
and because we've already done this, a few words about you, your career, just like a few little things,
Okay. Yeah.
and then
Well, yeah, I was a teacher after college, and then I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And when I wanted to go back to work, I wanted a flexible job. So I became a freelance writer and editor for the education market. And I wrote all kinds of stuff for that. I wrote lesson plans and textbook sections and different things. And then I kept getting encouraged by those editors that you're such a good writer. Maybe you should, have you thought about being an author? And I always loved reading and I always loved stories. And so I started writing and I tried it out and I joined SCBWI and a critique group through SCBWI. And yeah, and then I signed with Melissa and here we are.
Ruining all my theories, except one.
What are your theories?
Well, my theories are that it's impossible to get noticed in the slush pile, but obviously you did. And you chose to submit to an agent who wasn't looking for picture books. I mean, everything we tell people not to do, that's what you do.
Everything we tell people not to do. And I tell people when I meet them at conferences or whatever, don't necessarily do what I did. It happened to work out for me and I was very lucky. And I've been extremely lucky to have Melissa and have a partnership with her. But yes, the circumstances, and let me tell you, I know how to write a good query letter now if I need to help someone else write a good query letter. But my query letter was awful. It really was. It was very short and just sort of like, I saw on Twitter that you wanted a book that was, that sounds like my book. So here you go.
And she did.
And she did, yeah.
Quite incredibly, and you were fierce. But very often, and this is a fear of people like me who have a book coming out that the debut it can ever possibly be. And then you had another stellar book come out, How to Spot a Best Friend, which I spotted in Hebrew in a bookstore here in Israel, which is also a fantastic book. And then since then you've had, this is, I think, your fifth or sixth?
Yes, G.O.A.T is my fifth book, yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to tell you how it ruined my life.
Yes.
And so, sometimes you want to write a book, and Publishers Weekly comes out and says somebody's just acquired the rights to exactly the book that you're writing. I think this happens to everybody. And I was writing a book about a goat who was a goat, and I see that your book came up. And I wrote to you. And you sent me this lovely email because you are a lovely person. And you didn't say, Mel, don't write your story. You said, well, it's coming out, and Nancy Paulsen. And it may make it a little bit harder for you to sell your manuscript.
Yes.
But you didn't say don't write. And you were very kind. So I changed my manuscript, actually improved it. And it hasn't gone out on submission yet, but I hope it will someday. And I will then use your beautiful book as a comp.
That's great. Yeah, that's
exciting. To help sell this one, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
so,
and it just goes to show you that we're not all, like, our ideas are not necessarily as original as we think they are, right? Because that's happened to me many times, that I've had a book that I've already written, and then I see an announcement and it's like, oh, it might not be the same title, but that concept sounds exactly like my book. And so then that's maybe one that I put aside for a little while. Yes.
It happened to me 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
I think it happens to all writers, but the trick is to write many manuscripts and hope that one is something that is different enough from the rest of them.
Yes.
And you told me in our pre-conference discussion that you had a choking period last year.
I did. I had so I'm hard of hearing, and that's because of a series of bad ear infections in my 20s. And I have been very fortunate to not have trouble with my ears for a very long time. And then last year I had a double ear infection and it was really, really painful. And it just dragged on. And I took like 3 different courses of antibiotics and it was not going away. And I ended up having to have surgery on my ears and all this stuff. And I was really worried I was going to lose more or all of my hearing. And so I was in a really bad space mentally, and it had nothing to do with publishing or writing or anything with that. But I think sometimes when there are things happening, as there certainly are in the world or in our lives, that we can't control, like a health issue, we look to, well, what can I control? And I wasn't writing at the time, during all that time, because I was in pain all the time. So I wasn't writing, I wasn't feeling creative. And I said to my husband, you know what, I'm just quitting. I can't do the writing thing anymore. I'm just quitting. And that's it. That's it for me. And it just felt like, well, this is something I can control, whether I do this or not. And he said, well, this is his thing. He's very supportive. He's an extremely supportive husband. And he said to me, when's your last book coming out? And right now, with the deals I have, my last book is 2027. He said, you have to keep writing through 2027. That's the rule. And you can't stop until your last book comes out. And I said, okay, I just sort of, I said, okay, but then in my mind, I'm like, well, if I never think of another book again, then really it doesn't matter if I say I quit or not. It's like I quit. But he was very good about it. And I think I may have spoken to Melissa about it too. And she's super supportive and, always makes me feel better about things. But I still just was in a bad place. And then right as the ear infection was finally getting cleared up, I had been thinking, this is now, see, I said sometimes books take a long time. I had been thinking about a book about a child who experiences hearing loss. And I had been thinking about it for a long time, at 8 months, really, up to that point. But it was just sitting in the back of my head. I'd never written anything down about it. It was just sitting in my head. And when I was going through this experience, I thought of the book. I thought of what that book should be. And I wrote it, and it was like, I remember it was on a Friday. I wrote it on Friday morning. I sent it to Melissa Friday at lunchtime, probably. She sent it out that same afternoon, and we had interest already that same afternoon. And we ended up having multiple offers on that book, which hasn't been announced yet, but it will be out in 2027. So I didn't quit after all.
How does this we want to segue now to the world.
Mhm.
And you said you had some insight to share, because things are down and out. They're down and out in Israel. They're down and out in America. They're down and out in Europe. What the insight do you have to share, Bea?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm not sure that I have anything super innovative or, new to share, but I think what works for me, and it's certainly, you can have your moments of just what's the point and everything's going wrong and what's happening in our world. And I think, first of all, that you have to allow yourself to feel that. You have to give yourself permission to have bad days, and we can't, a lot of writers, and perhaps it's different for novelists because they have a lot more, a few more words to put down on the page, and they want to write every day. They feel that they have to write every day. As a picture book author, I don't have to write every day, and I don't write every day. I think about writing every day, but I don't put words, on the screen or on the page every day. And so that's my first thing, is that you allow yourself to have times when you're not writing, to have times when you're doing other things, or just having a bad day and not feeling it that day, and that's okay. And then I think you have to consume a lot of other people's art. You have to, read a lot of books and watch movies and TV shows and look at, go to museums and look online at beautiful portfolios.
This is great advice, you see, because like usually I write
Mhm.
more creative, less creative, but 2 weeks ago, I like for a week, I couldn't hold the pencil.
Yes.
And what you're saying is really a great idea. When you don't feel creative, consume other people's creativity.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's
Let it
that's
fill you
really
up. Yeah.
that's really, really good advice.
And then I think the third thing is because we write for children, and again, I don't know if this is would I would feel differently, but maybe I wouldn't if I wrote for adults. But because we write for children, we have a responsibility to bring joy into their lives, to make them feel empowered, to help them understand our world and what's happening in it and where they fit in the world and their unique gifts and what that can bring to the world. All of these things are a big responsibility, and as picture book authors, we share that responsibility with everyone in the child's life, of course, but we do have a responsibility to do that. So after you've had your bad days and then you've had your inspiration from other people who are creating wonderful things, and then I think you have to think, why am I doing this? And let yourself be angry about things and write that book. How do you deal with that when things are out of your control, and how do you deal with circumstances that you can't control? And how do you deal with, finding what you should be doing in the world? Put that into a story, because while you're figuring it out, right? We're still figuring it out. What am I supposed to be doing now? What am I supposed to be helping with? How can I help? How can I do more? Well, one thing you can do is to write stories that help children figure out what how to handle what's going on, and how to handle everything in their lives. Growing up is difficult in any time. So,
But here again, B, if we go back to this wonderful book, Goat is the Goat.
mhm.
Um, as all of the books that I know of yours, it has a happy ending. At the end of the day, there's actually a literal save the cat, Blake
Yes,
Snyder save the cat moment, um, and goat becomes a goat.
yes.
But do you have any stories that don't end that well for the main character? Because the world is not always, so positive. You're positive. You radiate positivity.
Yeah, well, I think I have the book that I was just talking about with the girl who experiences hearing loss. It it does have a happy ending in that she learns how to deal with that. But it doesn't have a happy ending in that she got her hearing back or anything like that. So, you have things that you cannot change. And so, yeah, I guess I have that in a book where I can't change this, but I can rise to the challenge of dealing with it.
Okay, so this book hasn't been announced yet,
It hasn't been announced, and
but
I'm just talking about it all over the place.
yeah, I apologize for outing you. I mean, but actually, you did it to yourself, kind of. But you do have 3 books that have been announced, and I'm intrigued to learn about them. Of course, probably given my track record, if I'm interviewing people, then I'll have you back next year. But a few words about the 3 that have been announced.
Yes.
I'm so interested. I'm so interested in the one about the how to grow a family tree.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so that one comes out October 7th, and it's with Neil Porter Books at Holiday House. And I'm really have had a wonderful experience working with the team there. And Jasu Hugh is the illustrator for that one. And I really cannot wait for everyone to see her art. It's so, so beautiful. And it's that one actually also has a main character who is hard of hearing, but it's not what the story's about. It's just that that happens to be her circumstance. And she lives alone with her mother, and that's her family. That's the only family she has. And when her class is making family trees, she doesn't know who to put on. She only has herself and her mother. And all of the other classmates have these, big families, and they have siblings, and they have grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins, and she does not. But what she does have is a very supportive community of neighbors. And so she learns throughout the course of the book that the family we choose is just as important as the family we're given.
Incredible. And you have another book coming out next year. That is not a dog.
Yes, in 2026, we'll have That Is Not a Dog, which has a cat main character. And the cat has never met a dog, but has heard that cats should stay away from dogs. They're terrifying, right? They have mean eyes and sharp teeth. This is not something a cat should take on. So the Ollie is the cat, and he goes out for a walk one day, and he meets an animal, and the animal is a lovely animal, and he thinks, well, that's certainly not a dog. That must be a sheep. It has some white fluffy hair. It must be a sheep. And of course, the reader knows that's really a dog that Ollie is meeting. But he doesn't believe it could be a dog because he's heard dogs are mean, and this animal is not mean at all. It must be a sheep. And so he goes along and meets a cast of characters that, we meet a bear and a hippo and all kinds of other animals that he decides those are a bear and a hippo, but really they're all dogs. So
you're so good at this, of these parallel subplot, where the reader is in on the joke.
Yeah. I love books like that. I love books where the reader feels like they know more than the main character. Yeah.
It's part of what makes you so terrific. And you have a book called You Did It?
You Did It, yes.
You did it.
You did it, and it's going to be a celebration. It's a graduation book. It's a celebration of what you've done during the school year. And that was actually Melissa's idea, that book. That came right from Melissa. She's had heard from a friend of hers that teachers were still wondering which book to use at the end of a school year. And they were, reading Dr. Seuss all these years and everything, with all the places you'll go.
Yeah, which comes to mind directly.
Yes, and
I was waiting for you to say it because I didn't want.
Yeah, no, that has been like the go-to book for a long time for graduation gifts and things like that. And this friend who's involved in a school system and choosing books for the school system mentioned to Melissa that they would love an updated book for graduation. And Melissa said to me, you could write this. And so I did. And that's coming out in 2026 also. Yes, and I just saw first sketches for that one, and I'm excited.
So Bea, how does it feel to be a celebrated, and rightly so, a celebrated picture book author? You're in the pantheon. I mean, certainly one of my favorite authors. So it has to be everybody else's. How do you feel?
Well, it's really, really sweet, Mel. I really appreciate it. And I don't feel that way at all. So I guess I don't know how that would feel because
You're not going to tell me that you still have imposter syndrome.
Oh yes, imposter syndrome. I don't know if it ever goes away. Maybe if you win the Newbery and the Caldecott and every award possible, it gets less. I don't know, but every writer I know has imposter syndrome, and I'm no exception to that. I'm always wondering if people are going to find out that I'm, just pretending to be able to do this, and and it's not, I just like every time I write something, it's a feeling of I think this works, but maybe it doesn't, and so I need a lot of positive reinforcement. I still need critique partners who say, yes, this is good. You should, and I need Melissa, my agent, to just constantly say, I just spoke to her last week, I think, and I was saying, I don't know, I don't know, Melissa, I don't know. And she was reassuring me. She's like, we have 10 deals. Objectively speaking, you're doing well.
You're doing okay.
And I was like, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't feel that way a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't know if anyone. I would love it if you ever have someone on who's had a lot more success and ask them if they still feel imposter syndrome. But I I don't ever feel that way. But the one thing that I'll say is that I just did last week and the week before we had World Read Aloud Day, and I did a whole bunch of virtual school visits. And I was allowed to read them Goat is the Goat because they weren't recorded visits. So I got permission from the publisher to read it to them. And so they got a sneak peek of the book before it was even out. And I got such a great response from all of those groups of kids. And I think that's like the one moment when I'm with kids on a school visit or at a bookstore, at a library, when I don't feel imposter syndrome, when I'm sharing the book and I can see that it's getting the reaction.
You know what my theory is going to be for that? Because
What?
on one of our previous conversations, we talked about my theory of 5-year-oldness.
Yes.
That we feel like a five. So my new theory is going to be that when B is sitting with other 5-year-olds,
Yeah.
then she gets to be her.
That's right. That's a good theory. When I'm with my people,
yes.
which is the 5-year-old group. Yes.
Yeah, so let's go back. You want to guess what we're going to segue to now?
I don't know. What are we going to segue to?
Well, because I want to go back to your name because if you mention that, I mean, like I am senile, or partly so, but I really don't remember having this conversation. And even if we had it, it's worth having another conversation. I was gullible enough to think that that was your real name, and I said it's a splendid name for a children's author. And you want to tell me now, after all these years that we've been friends, that that's not your name?
Yes, I am sure that we did have this conversation.
We're having it again. No wonder you have imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Well, B is my grandmother. It was my grandmother's name. And so I wanted to choose that name to honor her, but also because my first name is a difficult first name. It's spelled with the Gaelic spelling. My dad's Irish, and I have a difficult name. It's never ever going to be pronounced correctly in the United States. Perhaps if I lived in Ireland, we'd be good. But I've spent my whole life growing up having my name mispronounced. And as stated, I am a shy person, and so I don't always even correct when it's mispronounced. And but it's just always going to be mispronounced. And so I knew that I wanted to use a pen name just to avoid that situation, because I didn't want to spend my whole life being introduced by the wrong name.
Because, like, another favorite of mine is Leslie Newman, who has the chutzpah to have an E in her name with a accent grave in the middle, or whatever it's called. And God forbid you should put a regular E in that word. And a lot of people have strange names that could be mispronounced.
Yes.
And so you would be Colleen with a Gaelic spelling.
With the Gaelic spelling, and it does have an accent mark in it.
It probably has F's and H's and Q's in there.
The Irish names are difficult, yes.
and Garfunkel.
And that's my married last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
what was your maiden last name?
McCarthy.
McCarthy. That's a
Yes. So
lovely.
that would
That's
have
a.
that one would have been easier. Yes.
You could have been B. McCarthy.
I could have, yes, but I just
So
wanted to be away from my name altogether.
yeah, that's interesting. And I feel a real kinship towards you. We're both left-handed.
Yes.
Um, we both suffer from ear infections.
Mhm.
We both love wacky stories for 5-year-olds, and we both have name issues.
Why do you have a name issue?
Well, this interview is about you, dear, but my real name is Melvin with a Y.
Oh, okay.
And someday I'm going to write about that.
Yes. Yes.
But I mean, when I started this journey later in my life than you did, um, I thought of changing my name
Hmm.
to to a female author because
Okay.
I really think it's more difficult for guys. I know that women think it's not, but I really do think it's harder for guys to break into this area. Like prefer
Know
like,
about
and
that.
well, we're not going to have that discussion because I'm going to lose, and
You know, Mac Barnett was just named the ambassador for children's literature, right? There are loads of successful male picture book authors.
no, there aren't. You see, there's a disproportionate amount of wonderful male children's authors
Hmm.
who are wonderful authors,
Yes.
but probably there's not that many guys in this area because it's not something that brings you money, and you do have to be connected with your child self and your female self. Most of my stories are about girls, not about boys.
Right.
And I think that I really do think it is more difficult to break in. I really do. But we're not going to have this discussion.
Well, really,
I,
Mel could be short for Melanie or Melissa, right? You could be
no,
for all
so
we
I mean,
know, right?
at some stage, I did entertain changing my name to Melissa, to Mel something. I can't remember what it was, and I even got a new email
Okay.
address with my fake female name. But then I had to start switching it. I said, Oy vey, somebody's going to write to me. Somebody's going to, no, you're not Melissa. I know who you are.
Oh, well, I think you're good with Mel. I think you're good with Mel Rosenberg.
No, but so I thank you. But are you good with Bea Birdsong?
Yes, I love being Beeb. It makes me think of my grandmother every time I use it or someone uses it. And so I'm good. I'm just B in my job. And that's it. I love being B.
So like when you're writing your Bea and when you're home in the evening, watching television, then you're Colleen?
I guess. I don't know that people are constantly using my name, so I'm not sure that I really think about it that way. I don't necessarily like take off a B hat and put on a Colleen hat, but
No, I mean
yeah.
because there's a story here, and every time I interview people, I'm always intrigued about their names
Mhm.
because there's a lot Shakespeare wrote to what's in a name, but he was being facetious. Everything is in a name.
Yes. Well, I think for me, we were just talking about imposter syndrome, and I think maybe having a pen name helps give me courage to. It's almost like when you're an actor and you are playing a character, you're doing things, I'm sure, that are not what you would normally do in your life.
It's I will be fierce all over again.
And so, yes, it gives me, maybe a little bit, and not that I'm thinking about this every day, but a little bit of courage. Like maybe I can't do this, but B can. B can do it. And so she can write these books.
It gives you the courage to fight the monster,
Yes.
get on the bus and get on the bus.
Yes.
That's incredible. So, maybe we should encourage aspiring authors to find a name.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It-
some people don't need that, right? They already have their courage, and some people want everyone they ever knew to know that these books are by them, right? When their name is on the cover, and people have all kinds of reasons for using their names. And I know a lot of women use their real name, but their maiden name instead of their married name, and different things. We all
Look,
choose
you're
what
not,
name we want.
you're not writing hot, sexy books for teenagers. I mean, you're writing gorgeous books. Why would you want to hide, right?
Right, but I'm not, I mean, I just told you my real name, and it's on my announcements sometimes, the publishing, so it's not like it's hidden. I'm not hiding who I am, but yeah, for me it's the best choice.
No, I think, look, because I'm trying to understand. I've interviewed you 3 times. I don't interview hardly anybody. And I'm trying to understand your secret sauce. It's driving me crazy. Your success trajectory. I mean, okay, your books are wonderful, but still, you're like a bloody rocket taking off from the slush pile, which
From
I
the slush
say,
pile.
which I tell people, that's like the most difficult place. And you're like a Brer Rabbit. You just, entire baby or whatever.
I I
And
um I
throw me
don't
in this,
I, if I
throw me,
knew,
throw me in this,
Mel.
throw me in the slush pile. But you see, I know now, and I'm going to share it with everybody. I'm still going to have you back in half a year or a year when the tree book comes out. I'm intrigued by that one and the other one. But I figured it out now.
Okay,
If
so
you're an
maybe this.
aspire, if you're an aspiring author like B, find a name for yourself. You don't have to use it.
Right. Yes, that's true. You could just say, this is who I am while I'm sitting at this desk writing,
Like I
and
could
this
be,
person
yeah,
is successful. So
exactly.
let's be that person while we write this book.
Yes, I'm Tarzan Rosenberg.
Whoever
You just made it. You just
you want to be. Yes.
no. I want to be Tarzan Rosenberg. So I mean, you just made it so easy for everybody.
I think the wonderful thing about being any kind of creative is that
Hmm.
you have your own process, and everyone's process is different. And we all watch webinars and go to conferences and take different classes and read craft books trying to figure out what's that person's secret? How did they do it? How did they become so successful? But I think it's just that um, really we're taking them to figure out which pieces can we take, right, of that person's process that will then work for us, because it's not going to be exactly the same. It's never going to work out that way. When I talk to other picture book authors and I say, you know, once you have all the words in your head and you write them down, and they're like, what are you talking about? That's not how we work. We write everything down from the beginning. And for me, I usually just have the whole book in my head before I ever write anything down, because that's what works for me. But I'm not suggesting it to, I'm not saying, oh, you really can't write anything, we're down. Because that's not going to work for a lot of people.
Well,
So
and
you,
there's another. Before we go, I was just going to say another thing for. I think it's relevant here. People say, oh, why is there this rule about writing less than 500 words in a picture book manuscript? And I say that this is the rule because you should write a lot less than 500 words.
yes.
I have not counted your book word by word, but Goat is the Goat is probably under 200 words. And
Yeah,
I'm guessing that most of yours are not,
I think most of mine are, and I don't know for goat. I happen to remember that I Will Be Fierce is 189 words. That one I remember. Yes, but they are all under 500. Yes.
so goat is a goat. No, but the goat is a goat is maybe 198. I want somebody in the audience to count and tell us.
Yes. I could
Um,
look at the manuscript and tell you.
and And you know, it's a real lesson because your success is not on how many words you use, but how many words you don't use.
Yes, really, that's a good way of putting it. If there's anything in a picture book, if there's anything at all in your text that I already know from the art, then it doesn't need to be there. And I think that's where a lot of beginning writers get tripped up, is that they are, maybe they can't see what the art would look like yet. So they're just putting it all into words. And I think knowing, even if you're not an artist, because I'm certainly not, but just knowing what each page will have on it in a general sense, and it'll look different. You know, there will be something different, of course, about it, but in a general sense, what would be on this page? And then everything else is all of that in the text, all of that description. And any description should be saved for things we can't get from seeing art. So what does it smell like? What does it sound like? Those are things, descriptive words and phrases you could put into your text, because we can't get them from the illustration. But anything we could see should probably not be there. And I think too that when you've spent time reading books to children, it's tiring to read, you know, books from when I was little. A lot of them do have a lot of text, right? It's changed over the years. And when I read those books now, if I were reading it out loud to a group of kids, I might be skipping lines, because that's a lot of that's a lot to read, and they're wiggling on the floor, and you know, you have to hold their attention. And some of those older books have a lot of text. And so you have to think about the end user. Is a 5-year-old going to sit still while I read all of this? And if the answer is yes, then you're good. But you have to remember that. And I will say that my general thing is that I write very, very spare. And I have had both my agent and editors ask me to add more. I do I do usually write so spare. You know, I Will Be Fierce is 189 words finished. I think it was 120 when it got picked up by Melissa. So I don't waste words. I'm very choosy with my words, and I have had to make things longer. But I think you would rather have that. You need to have an agent or an editor see your work and say, okay, they can write tight. They can do that. It's easy enough to add. It's much harder to take away.
So, we've come to the end of our third interview. And I'm not going to ask you if there's anything we haven't covered, because I want to leave something for our next interview when your tree comes out. And maybe we will, yeah, maybe someday we'll have a talk about, we'll just go take one of your books and we'll do like a checklist of, you know, how Bea does it.
Okay. I would really have to think about that one ahead of time, but okay, we can work on that.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you, so you won't be able to think about it ahead of time. And I'm going to sign off. I'm going to thank you. I love these interviews. You're such a positive person. You share so much joy with me and the world. Congratulations on this book, The Goat is the Goat. Even though it preempted my goat was the goat. It came out 2 days ago.
Yeah.
2 days ago, Nancy Paulsen. It's gorgeous. Everybody run out and buy it. It'll just make you grin from ear to ear. And that's worth the price of the book.
Oh, thank you
And
so much, Mel.
kids
I
are gonna love it.
appreciate it. I've
And
love meeting with you.
yeah, and someday we will meet in person.
Yes, yes.
And in the meantime, my name is Mel Rosenberg. I have not changed it yet much. I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel, the New Books Network. And I have been here with the wonderful Bea Birdsong, alias Colleen Garfunkel, sharing her insights, her wisdom, but her wonderful optimism and cheerfulness, and celebrating her new book, Goat is the GOAT. And you know what, B? You're the GOAT.
Thank you, Mel.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.